It is Monday, December 12th. This is the Wiltfong Whiparound. I'm your host, Lance Glynn. We are only 9 days away from the start of the early signing period, and recruiting is still kicking up. Still so much to talk about, still so much to sort through, and nobody better to discuss everything you need to know about recruiting than the director of recruiting for 24/7 Sports, Steve Wiltfong. And Steve, like I said, we're only 9 days away. December 21st is on the horizon. It's on our radar. And we have a lot to discuss on today's show. So let's get right into it. Let's begin down south in Gainesville. Billy Napier had a big weekend when it comes to visits for the Florida Gators, guys like Samson Okunlola, Mark Fletcher, Jaden Platt. It was a busy weekend down for Florida. What's the latest on the reaction from those visitors? And specifically with Okunlola, what can you tell me about where he stands with his decision coming pretty soon?
Hey, good morning, Lance. 9:45 in the morning, Monday, as we record this. So information always subject to change, even by the end of the day. Speaking of that, log the 24/7 Sports crystal ball forecast in favor of Florida for American Heritage running back Mark Fletcher, top 247 recruit out of Fort Lauderdale. This has been a slobber knocker on the trail with Miami for the former Ohio State commit, and I'm certainly not ruling out Miami down the stretch here for Fletcher, as both of these teams jockey for position. But talking to folks that spent time with Fletcher over the weekend, it sounds real promising for Florida. As of today, 6'1", 225 pounds, ready to play on day one, whichever school he chooses. Rushed for over 1,800 yards and 22 touchdowns as a senior, one of the most coveted players in the Sunshine State down the stretch here for Florida. They have the number 11 recruiting class in the country, Lance, but they certainly have a chance to finish in the top 10 when all said and done. I'm going to go to my phone here as we talk about some of these other prospects, and because I talked with them via phone here, and I have my notes here. So Samson Okunlola, I still think, my crystal ball is on Miami. Nobody has indicated to me that I should change that. I know that he had a great trip to Florida, loved the people down there, loves the way that Coach Napier and company are running the program, got a chance to learn more about the offense and how they prepare their athletes for the real world. Those are all things that excite him. He had a good visit there a few weeks ago as well, where he got a chance to watch Florida practice and spend a lot of time with the coaching staff and Coach Napier. So Florida very much in it for Samson Okunlola, Mario Cristobal, and Coach Mirabal, they're expected to be in home with Samson on Tuesday. So they're going in there to make their pitch leading into his college decision, which will be on Friday, I believe, off the top of my head. Another offensive tackle that was on campus for them, Lance, that they would love to add. Offensive line is a need for them down the stretch as they try and shore up this class is Caden Jones. He's going to play in the All-America Bowl. That's where he's going to announce his decision on January 7th in San Antonio. Florida is my 24/7 Sports crystal ball forecast, and he had a great trip. Talked about the hospitality, talked about the family vibe at Florida, which was most important to him. And he feels like that program's only on the up. I think that Florida is in excellent position for Caden Jones as they battle Texas A&M and Houston, among others here down the stretch run of his recruitment. John Walker, top 247 defensive lineman, was back on campus. Look, the trenches, that's where Florida, they know they got to recruit better to build it up. That's where the program was probably most deficient when they walked in the door, the offensive line and defensive line. And I think that they've had some massive recruiting wins on the defensive line in this class. When you talk about beating Alabama and Georgia and company for Kelby Collins, beating Georgia for Cameron James, those are the programs you're trying to beat on the field. To win out for those defensive linemen would be huge. John Walker, major target for them down the stretch. Picked UCF over Ohio State in Florida the first time around, but been to Florida several times since. I think there's some optimism around Gainesville that he could ultimately end up in Florida's class. Jaden Platt is a tight end. He's our number 5 tight end in the country in the 24/7 Sports player rankings. Talked to him about his visit, and he talked about the resources that Florida provides their football players to succeed on the field, but also in the classroom. Currently committed to Stanford, so that's a big deal for him. the people that he met on his trip, he talked about how they make you better outside of football. Very important factor in his decision. Now, Platt's going to be at Texas A&M this weekend, Lance, and the Aggies in proximity to home and stuff keeps them very much in the picture. But Florida definitely has momentum with Samson Okunlola, but my pick's still on Miami right now. Cristobal and Mirabel going in on Tuesday. I think the Gators are trending to flip John Walker from UCF. My pick is currently on Florida for Mark Fletcher, but definitely never sleeping on Miami there. Jaden Platt, there seems to be some serious interest from him, currently committed to Stanford, but going to A&M this weekend and still, maintaining his pledge to the Cardinals. So we'll see how that goes. And then I love where Florida stands with Caden Jones when you're talking about the high school guys this weekend that were in Gainesville.
And you talked about these prospects visiting Florida, and you said it before on Whiparound that for Florida to get to a point to win national titles, they have to beat other teams that are competing to win national titles on the recruiting trail. Samson Okunlola, obviously, Florida and Miami. Guy Jaden Platt,
but anywhere
Florida,
you want.
Texas A&M, right? You Mark Fletcher, Florida, Miami. You talk about, again, these guys that have offers from blue bloods throughout the country. Florida needs to win these on the recruiting trail in order to not only reach the level of winning an SEC title, but then ultimately reach the level of winning a national title. But a big weekend for Billy Napier, a big weekend for the Florida Gators, a big weekend with a lot of big-time recruits in Gainesville. So definitely something to watch for Florida moving forward as they battle the likes of, like we said, Miami, A&M, Alabama, Georgia, others, so on and so forth for these top-level recruits. Let's head back up north now to the Northeast. Let's go to Happy Valley. Penn State, a big weekend as well when it comes to visitors. And there might be a couple of commitments on the horizon for the Nittany Lions. What could you tell us about James Franklin, his bunch, as he tries to finish out this 2023 class?
Yeah, so Penn State sitting on the number 13 recruiting class right now for the 24/7 Sports Recruiting Rankings. Had some key visitors on campus. They had edge rusher Joseph Mapoyi and defensive lineman Mason Robinson have both forecasted to the Nittany Lions on the 24/7 Sports Crystal Ball. Robinson just talked about how competitive the practices are. As they were in town, they get a chance to see Penn State prepare for the Rose Bowl and their date with Utah there. And he talked about the coaches and players and staff and how they treat them like family, and that they're always genuine. So I think that Penn State, we like their position coming into the visit for the Northwestern commit. Love it coming out. Joseph Mapoyi, I mean, he loves Coach Franklin, likes how the people treat him on campus. Went to the whiteout game 2 years ago against Auburn and said it was magical. Penn State at the time wasn't pushing for him, so he worked hard, he said, for Penn State to start pushing for him. Ty House's guy, Penn State assistant coach, says he can see himself playing in that defense and thinks that the coaching staff is one that can help him improve as a student athlete. They also took a swing at top 247 running back Kedrick Riscano this weekend. I think that Ole Miss is, until someone tells me different, I think Ole Miss continues to be the tone setter in that recruitment. But I think that if Penn State doesn't make a move there, they're still in fantastic position for Georgia running back Cameron Wallace, who visited in November. So Penn State, they're going to close with a good back here. Just a matter of which one. And then Kavion Keys is a 4-star hard-hitting linebacker out of Virginia that I love my prediction for Penn State for. Former North Carolina commit, trending heavy for the Nittany Lions right now. 6'3", 205 pounds. Jawan Sider leading the charge on that one with an assist from Manny Diaz. Sider currently ranks number 3 in the 24/7 Sports Recruiter rankings right now. But if they could add Keys to Tony Rojas, that would be a couple athletic, hard-hitting linebackers that can really play in space with high developmental upside. So Penn State class really coming together well right now for them down the stretch. Mapoyi, Robinson, and Keys, I like them. And then they're still very much alive for Daniel Harris, 4-star corner. Crystal ball's on Georgia, former Georgia commit. But I know he's saying all the right things to the folks in Happy Valley as well. And that one's a tight one down the stretch with Georgia as that speedy, high upside cornerback decides what he wants to do with his recruitment down the stretch.
Yeah, a lot to look for, or a lot to look forward to when you're Penn State, as you know, Mapoy, Kavion Keys. Obviously, you mentioned Daniel Harris, someone they're fighting for. So a lot to look forward to for the Nittany Lions as they try to close out what is right now the number 13th or the 13th ranked class in the 2023 ranking. So we went down first. Now we're going up. Let's go back down south to Auburn. And obviously Hugh Freeze on the job a couple weeks now, making moves on the recruiting trail, trying to close out this 2023 class for the Tigers. What's the latest you can tell me about Auburn as they were able to, I think, secure a commitment as well as potentially make some moves with some other top targets, only 9 days now before signing day?
Yeah, two commitments for Auburn, Hugh Freeze and the Tigers over the weekend. They flipped Tyler Johnson, a 6'6", 300-pound offensive tackle from Louisiana, from Texas Tech offensive line, similar to what we talked about with Florida, a major position of need for them here down the stretch. And then you have Colton Hood, a cornerback from Eagles Landing Christian Academy, Tigers legacy. Several family members, including his dad and uncle, played for Auburn. He was committed to Michigan State at one point, but now he gives Auburn a playmaker in the secondary, going to go in there and play for his dream school. And those are the kind of guys you want at Auburn, guys that just love the university for what it is and want to help build it back up. Colton Hood, 6 foot, 170-pound defensive back that has proven to be a playmaker in the secondary, in the fold there. Now, could they flip a couple guys? I think that it's sounding real promising right now with Ohio State top 247 defensive back commit Kayin Lee. Now the Buckeyes are trying to hold Auburn off, but there's no question that Auburn has some major momentum with Kayin Lee. And then Connor Lew, the top center in the country, in my opinion, currently committed to Miami. I think that Auburn has some major momentum with Connor Lew as well, coming out of a weekend visit to the Auburn campus. Auburn also hosted a couple quarterbacks this weekend. Marcel Reed, four-star quarterback, currently committed to Ole Miss out of the state of Tennessee. He's expected at Texas A&M this coming weekend, so we'll see what happens there. Hank Brown, he visited Auburn on Sunday, told me it was a incredible day. He was obviously committed to Coach Freeze at Liberty, reopened his process. Now his high school coach was Trent Dilfer, who's now the head football coach at UAB. So we'll see what happens there. But Hank Brown loves Coach Freeze and Coach Austin, talked about how authentic they are, said that he feels he can have success there, said Auburn has the best facilities in the country. This is a young man that led Lipscomb Academy to a state championship, 73% completion percentage, lands over 3,000 yards passing, 47 touchdowns. Hank Brown is a guy that I could see in Auburn's class. We'll see what happens over the next week. But a lot of offensive linemen were on campus this weekend. Couple quarterbacks as Hugh Freeze and company try and get this thing going. Kayin Lee, defensive back that they're trying to flip from Ohio State. They're trying to flip a lot of guys right now. Auburn's going to be a fun team to watch these next 9 days or however many it is. It can't get here soon enough, though, Lance. Damn it, I wish it was this Wednesday. I wish that we were not going until December 21st. I wish we were ending on the 14th. The early signing period should never be so close to the holiday. I'm on my soapbox right now.
Yeah, no, I feel you. It's the anticipation of it all, right? Like, we know it's 9 days away, still over a week, but it's like you just want it to come already. And of course, here at 24/7 Sports, we have the best signing day coverage around on signing day on that Wednesday, December 21st. Make sure to stay locked into the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel, as we're going to have wall-to-wall coverage, all-day coverage for you of the beginning of the early signing period. Steve, you're going to be a major part of that. I'll be with you, in fact, in Nashville, so I'll see you there in about a week and a half, my good friend. But that is something you do not want to miss. Again, the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. We will have all-day coverage of National Signing Day as we get set for what could be a very busy day next Wednesday. So, Steve, let's now stay in the South, move a little bit west, and let's go to TCU, right? Sonny Dykes headed to the playoffs. The first-year head coach brought the Horned Frogs there, and he had a big weekend when it comes to recruiting, as well as they obviously get ready to take on Michigan in the college football playoff. What can you tell me about TCU, who they had, and what they're trying to do as they also look to wrap up this 2023 class strong?
Lance, TCU has the nation's number 19 recruiting class, and they're obviously looking to finish strong, coming off an appearance in the college football playoff here. Prospects that visit campus Can feel the excitement around there as the team prepares for their semifinal against Michigan. Top 247 athlete Jelani McDonald was on campus out of Waco there. Texas is the 24/7 Sports crystal ball favorite right now, but I think TCU is grabbing all the momentum here. I think he was in Austin on an unofficial and watched TCU beat the Longhorns. Now he's expected back at Texas this weekend for an official, but I think he's very impressed with the player development at TCU and the way they scheme things up and the amount of success that they've had on the field. Not only this year, but over the last 10 years, TCU's been far superior from a success standpoint to their conference rival. Won't be their conference rival much longer, but Texas down there in Austin. So I think I think that TCU is really picking up steam with him. I still love where TCU sits with top 247 receiver athlete Mikal Harrison Pilot, who's not going to announce his college decision until January 7th at the All-America Bowl. But I think TCU's in great position for him. Jamel Johnson is a 4-star safety from Arlington, one-time Texas commit. I really think TCU ultimately lands him. Javon Thomas, they've been working for a while to flip him from Texas A&M. Still haven't, I think that they're obviously very much in it. Not ready to predict that he will be a Horned Frog yet, but obviously he has great interest in TCU. And then Randon Fontanetti's a 24/7 Sports composite 4-star safety that was on campus this weekend, Lance, that I still think TCU's in a good spot for. But so is Vanderbilt, the chance to be an immediate impact player for the Commodores in the SEC. I think is also exciting for him. And then you can kind of play around with this 24/7 Sports calculator here. And if you put in Javon Thomas, Michael Harrison Pilot, Jelani McDonald, and Jamel Johnson, that takes their score up to 248.36, Lance, which would then put TCU into the top, would put them into the top 15 right now. So they have a chance to rally and move into the top 15 of the 2024/7 Sports recruiting rankings by the end of the cycle if they continue if they can finish off these recruitments that they're definitely in great position for.
And it shows just the impact that Sonny Dykes has not only made on the field, but obviously the impact that he's made off the field in recruiting, because this has been a great year so far for TCU, obviously going to the college football playoff. It's been a great 2023 cycle for them on the recruiting trail. So real credit to Sonny Dykes for what he's been able to do in his first year on the job down there.
A+ rating, Brad Crawford's coach article.
Oh yeah.
And
frankly, you can even give him an A+. Honestly, I'd give him an A++. Now, granted, I know that's not a real thing, but I mean, 100 out of 100, right, for Sonny Dykes. I mean, what more can you ask from a first-year head coach than bringing a team to the college football playoff with a lot of the same roster that they had before, as well as obviously, put together potentially a top 15 class, which again, you can't really ask for more from Sonny Dykes than what he's already given TCU. So, Steve, we've talked about Florida, Auburn, Penn State, TCU. I want to hit on before we go a couple commitments and a couple prospects. And the first one I want to discuss, Christopher Johnson, 4-star running back. He committed to Miami. What are the Canes getting in this dynamic back, and what does he bring to this recruiting class that is really doing wonders for Mario Cristobal here in 2023?
Yeah, the number 7 ranked recruiting class in the country for Miami right now, and they need more big play ability on their offense. And Christopher Johnson, certainly a guy, as you said, dynamic. He's someone that can hit a home run anytime he touches the football and lights up the scoreboard. You get a young man like that in space, he's one broken tackle away or one seam away from finding the end zone. And so when Miami's at its best, it's when they have game changers at the skill position. And this is a guy that has a lot of upside and ability to light up the scoreboard. And good recruiting win for them with schools like Ole Miss, Penn State, and several others trying to lure him away from South Florida.
100%. A great win for Miami, a great win for Mario Cristobal. Like you said, a top 10 recruiting class for the Canes. Even with the struggles on the field, off the field in recruiting, Mario Cristobal is doing what we all expected Mario Cristobal to do when he came over from Oregon to the U. He's really.
I expect him to win too, because that's what he did at Oregon.
100%. Look, it's ultimately a
Pac-12 title game. Had Oregon in the discussion for the college football playoff a couple of times. Tough sledding at Miami early on here with the roster inherited and kind of the culture inherited, but they're recruiting at a high level. This will
Yep.
be a second straight cycle. They're going to go into the portal and hit big there. And, I expect to see a different Miami football team next year. But again, it's a gradual process. And, I know everybody would have loved to see him win big this past year, but hey, it was year 2 where Mel Tucker won 11 ball games, right, at Michigan State. And
well, so for Tucker, it was actually year 1. But again, you got to remember with Michigan State, they hit the portal just so heavy in his first year.
right, that's kind of my point.
Yeah. And look, with Cristobal, like you said, it's a gradual rebuild, right? And rebuilds start on the recruiting trail. He inherited a program that was down with its culture, that was really down with its roster in certain key positions, and he's recruiting to rebuild everything. And you got to assume that a lot of these 2023 kids from Miami are going to come in and they're going to make an impact from day one. So Mario Cristobal certainly has that program, I think, even with poor results on the field, trending in the right direction, simply because he's recruiting at a top 10 level, which, like I said, is exactly what we expected from Mario Cristobal when he came to Miami.
Mel Tucker won 11 in year 2, bud.
You're right. You know what it was? 2020 was year 1. I always get confused with the 2020 COVID year. That was such a weird year. And in fact, I should remember that because if you remember correctly, Steve, that first game in that COVID year, Michigan State played Rutgers, and that was Greg Schiano's first game, and Rutgers won. Rutgers beat Michigan State. You were right. I was wrong. That's on me. But nevertheless,
2-5 to 11-2 with a top 10
yes.
finish in the Peach Bowl.
Again, it was the COVID year that always gets to me. I always forget that COVID year.
We'll see what Miami does in year 2, but the guys are loading up with talented players. They have Francis Mauigoa committed. If they land Samson Okunlola, that would be 2 of the top 3 offensive tackle prospects.
Do you think Mauigoa and Okunlola are day one guys? Not necessarily day one, but at least early impact guys.
Well, it's the hardest position to be early impact, in my opinion, but both of them certainly have the skill sets and the ability to come in right away and give you something as true freshmen.
Yeah, they really do. 2 big bodies. And again, it's like you said, the hardest position to be a day one starter, to be a day one big impact guy. But as the season progresses, it would not shock me at all in 2023 to see Francis Mauigoa and Samson Okunlola, if Samson Okunlola does end up landing with the Canes, being in that rotation on the offensive line for Miami. So, Steve, let's move on to Suntarine Perkins. He's right now with Ole Miss. Do you like where the Rebels stand with Suntarine Perkins? Should they be worried at all? What's kind of going on there with his recruitment?
Well, talking to him at check-in for the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game early last week, he had mentioned to me that he did not think that he would sign during the early signing period, and that he would take an official visit to Alabama in January. But by the end of the week, his tune was changing on that. And I think after an official visit to Ole Miss this weekend, there's a lot of confidence that he'll stick with Ole Miss and sign during this early signing period. And he would be a massive recruiting win for a defense that ranks 69th nationally in total defense. He is college ready, man. 6'3", 200 pounds. At the Alabama-Mississippi game, he was probably my second favorite player there after Peter Woods. He could rush the passer. He can play in space. He can cover. He checks a lot of boxes. He's one of the best two-way players in America, a terrific running back as well. Suntarine Perkins is a guy that I think could be a potential game changer on defense for Ole Miss as they try and improve that side of the ball with what is already one of the more elite offenses in the country.
Yeah, we have Suntarine Perkins here at 24/7 Sports as the number 5 linebacker in the country. So it would be a big win for Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss to obviously keep him. And Lane Kiffin, of course, coming off a big contract extension himself. So it would be a nice little win to not only get the extension, but also obviously keep Suntarine Perkins in the fold there in Oxford. Steve, let's move on now to Jarvis Green, the 3-star running back out of the state of South Carolina. You put in a crystal ball for him to go to Clemson. What went into your crystal ball, and why are the Tigers the favorite?
Well, he loves the brotherhood at Clemson, and earned a late offer from Clemson, but really has had 2 dominant years to end his high school football career over there at Dutch Fork in state. As a senior, averaged nearly 10 yards per carry, gaining, rushing for 2,272 yards and 33 touchdowns. Also had 527 receiving yards and 6 more scores. But again, he talked about the family environment and the brotherhood around Clemson. Virginia Tech's the other school in the mix for Jarvis Green. But I expect them to be in the fold for the Tigers here as they put the finishing touches on a recruiting class that ranks number 9 nationally.
Yeah, something to watch Jarvis Green, but Steve, the crystal ball to Clemson for the 3-star running back out of the state of South Carolina. So, Steve, before we go, big weekend for Wisconsin and Luke Fickell, big weekend for Nebraska and Matt Rule. David Hicks, the number 1 defensive lineman in the class, visited Oregon. He's currently committed to Texas A&M. Dante Moore, one of the top quarterbacks in the class, 5-star out of Michigan. He visited UCLA. He's currently committed to Oregon. Let's whip around a little bit. What can you tell me about all those?
Well, let's start up there at Wisconsin, right? The Badgers hosted several official visitors for what was the first big visit weekend for Luke Fickell and company. The Badgers, they have right now 8 commits in their class. But I think that they're going to land several guys that were in town over the weekend here. Some of the headliners were, and we're going to have an update on Nicholas Harbor soon on the site here, Lance, as his dad calls in. I'll call him back here right when we get done with the show. But 4-star athlete Braden Moore from Hamilton, Ohio, Baden, logged a 24/7 Sports Crystal Ball, joining Badgers 247 insider Evan Flood after talking to him about his visit. I think that he's one of the best two-way players in the Midwest. Former Cincinnati commit. I think he'll ultimately be in the fold. Same goes with Jonas DeClona, All-American corner out of Naples, Florida. Visited this weekend, one-time commit to Cincinnati. Think he ends up following those guys to Madison as well. They love him. They love both those guys. Think that they could be difference makers, game changers on defense. Jamel Howard's a 6'3", 320-pound defensive tackle from Chicagoland. Michigan picked up some steam on the crystal ball when he decommitted from Wisconsin under the old staff, but I think that it was a really good visit. His family likes it. Now Michigan's still in there. LSU may be a player down the stretch, but Wisconsin a team to watch with Jamel Howard again. Tucker Ashcraft's a 6'5", 235-pound athletic tight end from Seattle, Washington. Everything's sounding really good for Wisconsin with him. And then Christian Allegro is a 6'3", 220-pound linebacker from Avon Old Farms in Connecticut. I think Wisconsin set the bar for him. He's going to be at Minnesota this coming weekend for his official visit. So it sounds like Wisconsin hit the mark with everybody that was on campus this weekend for them. It was also a big recruiting weekend for the Huskers as they hosted some of their top targets down the stretch, including 4-star in-stater Malachi Coleman. Now, Coleman's expected at Michigan this weekend, but Matt Rule and the new staff making a fast impression on one of the most explosive athletes in the country, 6'5", 205 pounds. They love him at receiver at Nebraska. They want to get a lot more playmaking ability on that side of the ball. And so Malachi Coleman is one that they continue to impress. I like my old crystal ball pick for Cameron Lenhart, one-time Nebraska commit. Visits again this weekend. I think that the new staff is doing a good job with him. Jalen Lloyd's announcing his commitment this week. 10'4" kid, 25-foot long jumper, receiver target for Nebraska. Things seem to be in a good spot for Wisconsin there. Kai Wallen, the number 4 edge rusher from the JUCO circuit out of American River Community College. He told me Nebraska is the one to beat for him coming out of the visit. So I'll log that crystal ball in favor of Nebraska. How about Quentin Ives? They go into New Jersey and they land Quentin Ives. He's a 6'3", 6'2"-ish, 180-pound big play machine. In 9 games, Lance scored 29 touchdowns there for Palmyra there out in your neck of the woods.
Down south. It's down south for me, Steve. Palmyra's a good, I would say hour and a half for me, but it's down south. But it is New Jersey. Gotta love South Jersey.
That's how long it takes for me to get from one suburb to another here in Indianapolis. But look, he's got good speed. He's an explosive long jumper, over 23 feet. One source said that he reminded him of James Starks, a former NFL running back, James Starks. So Nebraska, they're looking for more dynamic pieces on offense. They could certainly hit on a few of these guys that visited over the weekend that can really run, that have high upside playmaking ability. JV and Tobiano, top 247 cornerback, is going to announce his college decision on Thursday. My crystal ball is on LSU for him, Lance. It's been on LSU for a while. We'll see if the Tigers can pull this one out as defensive back. Major position in need for them here at the end of the cycle. They have the number 6 recruiting class in the country. They would love to add Javian Toviano to it. David DJ Hicks was back at Oregon for the 4th time this weekend, was there till Sunday. Look, it's obvious he really likes Oregon. Is Oregon to be able to flip him from Texas A&M? I think there's still some work to be done there. But no question he likes Oregon a lot. And the Ducks are a contender for him down the stretch. UCLA gets 5-star quarterback Dante Moore on campus. We had the news first on 24/7 Sports this past week. And while sources around Moore said that they thought that he would ultimately stick with Oregon, anytime you take a visit and you go out and see one of the best offensive coaches in college football in Coach Kelly, you can't rule out the Bruins. So we'll have more information on that visit as the week continues on 24/7 Sports. But thanks for tuning in, Lance. Thanks for getting up with me and doing this show. I got to call Azuka Harbor back now, so I'm going to run. But thanks, everybody, for listening. Hit the like and subscribe button. Do the same on Josh Pate's page, too. He gave us a big plug on his show last night on Late Kick. So get over there and like his page, and we're going to combine everybody next Wednesday. Unfortunately, not this Wednesday for the early signing period show.
Yeah, we absolutely will. And again, thank you all for tuning in to the Wiltfong Whiparound. For Steve Wiltfong, I am Lance Glenn. Just remember, every Tuesday and Thursday at 5 Eastern, 4 Central, the college football recruiting show on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. And of course, next Wednesday, December 21st, the start of the early signing period. Make sure to stay locked into the 24/7 Sports YouTube page, as we will have all day coverage of National Signing Day again. So for Steve Wiltfong, I am Lance Glynn. Thanks for listening to the Wiltfong Whiparound.